The Thanksgiving table stretched out before me, polished wood reflecting the candlelight. I remember the glint on the crystal, the scent of roast turkey, the familiar faces around me. Faces I'd known my whole life, suddenly feeling like strangers. My daughter, Mia, was 7. Her small hand found mine under the table, a silent anchor. We'd finalized her adoption only 6 months prior, but she'd been my daughter the moment I met her 2 years ago. On her other side, my husband, Michael, was a steady, quiet presence. Across from us, my sister, Jessica, held court, her husband Brian nodding along with their 2 children, who were like matching bookends. My mother, Eleanor, sat at the head, and my father, Robert, anchored the other end, completing a scene that looked plucked from a holiday magazine, all perfect and posed. We were at my parents' sprawling estate in Massachusetts, a property I'd always been told had been in our family for generations. Jessica had been making little comments all evening, tiny jabs disguised as jokes, barbs wrapped in laughter. I'd done my best to ignore them, trying to keep the peace, trying to give Mia the family Thanksgiving she deserved. My daughter had endured enough upheaval in her short life, she didn't need to witness whatever petty drama my sister wanted to stir up. The meal progressed through the usual courses: turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, those sweet potatoes with marshmallows Mia loved. My mother, as always, had outdone herself. Everything was picture perfect on the surface. Then came dessert. Eleanor began bringing out pies, apple, pumpkin, pecan. The children's table was set up in the adjoining room, visible through the wide doorway. My niece and nephew, aged 9 and 11, had migrated there earlier, declaring themselves too old for the adult table. Mia, sweetheart, Jessica's voice dripped with artificial sweetness. Why don't you go join your cousins at the children's table for dessert? Mia's hand tightened around mine. She was shy, always had been. Her adoption counselor said it stemmed from her early childhood, from being moved between foster homes before I found her. She didn't warm up to new people easily, and my sister's children had mostly ignored her all evening. She's fine here with us, I said quietly, keeping my voice level. Jessica's smile sharpened. Well, I just thought she'd have more fun with the other kids. You know how it is. She paused, her eyes glittering with something mean. Besides, adopted kids sit at the kids' table. That's just how we've always done things in this family. Her words hung in the air, a toxic cloud. I felt Mia's whole body go rigid beside me, her hand trembling. When I looked down, her bottom lip was quivering, her wide eyes brimming with tears she was desperately trying to hold back. This brave little girl, who'd survived so much, was shaking because my sister had just reduced her to a label, an outsider, someone less than. My own vision blurred. The hurt was so sharp, so sudden, I couldn't breathe around it. How could my own sister, my own blood, be so deliberately cruel to a child? What had Mia ever done to deserve this? Before I could find words through my fury and heartbreak, Michael stood. His movement was calm, controlled, but there was steel in his spine. He placed his napkin carefully on the table, the gesture almost ceremonial. Interesting, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. Should I tell everyone who really owns this house? Forks clattered against plates. Eleanor's hand froze halfway to her mouth. Robert's face went pale, then red. Jessica's smirk faltered, confusion replacing her smugness. What are you talking about? Jessica demanded. Michael looked at my parents. Would you like to tell them, Eleanor and Robert, or shall I? Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. Robert cleared his throat, not meeting anyone's eyes. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I stared at my husband, my mind racing. What was he talking about? This was my parents' house. It had always been their house. Unless, 3 years ago, Michael began, his voice still eerily calm, your parents faced foreclosure on this property. The family business had failed. Robert had made some unfortunate investments. They were 60 days from losing everything. Jessica's face had gone white. That's not true. Dad, tell him that's not true. But Robert said nothing, just stared at his plate as if it held the answers to questions he didn't want asked. Your parents came to us, Michael continued. They asked for help. They were ashamed. Didn't want the extended family to know they'd lost the family fortune. So, we made them an offer. He looked directly at Jessica. We bought the house. We paid off all their debts. And we let them continue living here. Told them they could stay as long as they wanted, rent-free, because they're family. Eleanor's face crumpled. Tears streaked her makeup, and suddenly, she looked decades older. Michael, please. The deed is in our names, my husband said, and there was no triumph in his voice, only sadness. Has been for 3 years. Every bill, every property tax, every maintenance cost, we've covered all of it. We've never asked for anything in return except that you treat us with basic decency. I couldn't process what I was hearing. 3 years. Michael had been handling this for 3 years, and I'd never known. We'd talked about our finances, about our savings taking a hit, but he'd attributed it to business investments. He'd never told me the truth because he knew I would have insisted on telling my family the real situation, and he wanted to protect my parents' pride. Jessica found her voice. This is absurd. Mother, tell them this is absurd. It's true. Eleanor's voice broke. All of it. We were going to lose everything. The house, our reputation, everything your grandparents built. We didn't know what to do. And you never thought to tell me? Jessica's voice pitched higher. I'm your daughter. Help with what? Robert finally spoke, his voice heavy. You and Brian were drowning in your own debt from that business venture that failed. We knew you couldn't help us. The look on my sister's face would have been satisfying if the whole situation wasn't so devastating. Years of her lording her perceived superiority over me, her subtle digs about my choices, my career, my life, all while living in a house my husband had saved. So when you made that comment about my daughter, Michael said, looking at Jessica with something like pity, about where adopted children belong in this family, you did so while sitting at a table in a home that exists because of the generosity we showed your parents. You insulted a 7-year-old child who has done nothing but try to be part of this family, while enjoying hospitality that we provide. Mia was still trembling, but now she was looking up at Michael with something like awe. He reached down and gently squeezed her shoulder. Mia is my daughter, I said, finding my voice at last. Not my adopted daughter. Not my foster daughter. My daughter. She belongs exactly where I am, always. And if that's not acceptable to this family, then this family isn't acceptable to us. Eleanor was openly crying now. Please, I'm so sorry. Jessica, apologize right now. My sister looked around the table. Like a trapped animal. I didn't mean, yes, you did, Michael said quietly. You absolutely meant it. The question is why. Brian, my brother-in-law, had been silent this whole time. Now he spoke up, his voice tight. Jessica, what is wrong with you? She's a child. I was just joking. My sister tried, but her voice lacked conviction. Jokes are supposed to be funny, I said. That was just cruel. Robert stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He walked around the table to where Mia sat and knelt beside her, his eyes level with hers. Mia, he said gently, I am so sorry. What your aunt said was wrong and hurtful, and you didn't deserve that. You are part of this family, and you belong wherever you choose to sit. I hope you can forgive us. My daughter looked at him with those solemn dark eyes. Then she looked at my mother, at Jessica, at all the adults who had just shattered what should have been a simple family holiday. Why doesn't she like me? Mia asked, her voice small but steady. I tried to be nice. The question hung in the air, unanswerable, because the truth was too ugly. My sister didn't like Mia because my sister was jealous, bitter, small. Because Mia represented everything Jessica couldn't control or diminish with her cutting remarks. Some people, Michael said, lifting Mia into his arms, are unhappy with themselves. And when people are unhappy with themselves, they sometimes try to make others feel small. But that's about them, sweetheart, not about you. You are perfect exactly as you are. I stood, gathering my purse. We're leaving. Please don't go, Eleanor begged. It's Thanksgiving. We're a family. Family doesn't treat each other like this, I said, the anger finally breaking through my shock, hot and clean. Family doesn't tear down a child to feel superior. Family doesn't sit in judgment while living off someone else's charity. That's not fair, Jessica protested weakly. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about every snide comment you've made about my career. Every time you've questioned my choices, every backhanded compliment about my house, my car, my life. All while you were living here, in this house that Michael saved, looking down on us. My sister's face was blotchy now, tears and rage mixing into something ugly. You always had to be the special one, the good daughter, the successful one. Now you get to play savior, too. This isn't about being special, I said quietly. This is about basic human decency. Something you seem to have lost. Michael was already heading toward the door with Mia. I followed, Eleanor's protests fading behind us. As we reached the foyer, I turned back one last time. My family sat frozen at that beautiful Thanksgiving table, the ruins of their perfect holiday scattered among the china and crystal. Eleanor was still crying. Robert looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Jessica stared at her hands, her children watching her with confused, frightened eyes. Brian had his head in his hands. The house is yours, I told my parents. We'll have the deed transferred back to you. Consider it an early inheritance. But understand this, we're done. No more holidays. No more pretending. Mia deserves better than to grow up thinking she's less than because she's adopted. And honestly, I deserved better, too. I just never realized it until tonight. The drive home was quiet. Mia sat in her car seat, staring out the window at the dark neighborhood sliding past. Michael drove with one hand, his other finding mine across the console. You knew, I said finally. You knew she would do something like this. I suspected, he admitted. The comments at your birthday. The way she looked at Mia at the adoption finalization party. I've been watching, waiting. Why didn't you tell me about the house before? Your parents asked me not to. They were ashamed. And I thought, he paused, choosing his words carefully, I thought maybe protecting their secret would make them protect you. Protect our family. I was wrong. We pulled into our driveway, our modest but comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't a family estate. It wasn't filled with antiques and history. But it was ours. Truly ours, and it was filled with love. Mia was quiet as we got her ready for bed. She let me help her into her pajamas, brush her teeth, tuck her into bed with her favorite stuffed elephant. But when I went to turn off the light, her small voice stopped me. Mom? I turned back. Yes, baby? Am I really your daughter? Not just adopted? My heart broke and mended in the same instant. I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. You are really my daughter. Adoption doesn't make you less real or less mine. It just means I got to choose you, specifically you, out of all the children in the world. And I would choose you again every single day. Even though your sister doesn't like me? My sister has problems that have nothing to do with you, I said firmly. And honestly, sweetheart, I don't care what she thinks anymore. The only opinions that matter are mine and yours and Daddy's. We're a family, the three of us. That's what's real. She thought about this, her brow furrowed in concentration. Can we have Thanksgiving at our house next year? Just us? Absolutely, I promised. Just us. We'll make our own traditions. She smiled then, the first real smile since dinner. Can we have 2 kinds of pie? We can have 3 kinds of pie if you want. After she fell asleep, I found Michael in the kitchen making tea neither of us would drink. He handed me a mug anyway, and we stood there in the quiet of our home, processing everything that had happened. Your phone has been buzzing, he said, nodding toward where I'd left it on the counter. I looked at the screen. 17 missed calls from my mother, 12 text messages, 3 voicemails. I turned the phone face down. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Or maybe never. Your parents genuinely seemed sorry, Michael offered, but there was no pressure in his voice. Sorry they got caught. Sorry their perfect family image shattered. Sorry I finally stood up for myself. I shook my head. But are they sorry enough to actually change? To actually treat Mia with the love and respect she deserves? I doubt it. My phone buzzed again. This time I picked it up and saw Jessica's name. Against my better judgment, I opened the message. You humiliated me in front of my children. You destroyed our family over a simple joke. I hope you're happy. I stared at the words, feeling nothing but a distant sort of pity. Even now, she couldn't see past her own pain to the hurt she'd caused. Even now, she was the victim in her own story. I typed back a single sentence, I didn't destroy this family. You did when you decided to hurt a child. Then I blocked her number. The following days brought a deluge of family politics I hadn't anticipated. Cousins I barely spoke to suddenly had opinions. My Aunt Carol called, demanding to know what had happened because Jessica was spreading her version of events across the family network. According to my sister's narrative, I'd orchestrated some elaborate setup to embarrass her, used my daughter as a pawn, and revealed private family financial matters out of spite. Let me tell you what actually happened, I said to Carol, and walked her through the entire evening, step by step. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, that girl always did have a mean streak. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry Mia had to experience that. Carol became my unexpected ally. She started making calls of her own, setting the record straight with relatives who'd only heard Jessica's twisted version. Apparently, my sister had conveniently omitted the part where she attacked a 7-year-old child. Meanwhile, Brian called Michael. My brother-in-law sounded exhausted. My kids have been asking questions I don't know how to answer. They want to know why you really own Grandma and Grandpa's house. Why their mom said those things about Mia. Jessica won't talk about it. Just keeps saying everyone ganged up on her. What did you tell them? Michael asked, putting the phone on speaker so I could hear. The truth. That their mother said something unkind to their cousin and there were consequences. That sometimes adults make mistakes. Brian paused. She's been different lately. Angry all the time. I thought it was stress from her book club drama or something trivial. I didn't realize it ran this deep. Book club drama? I asked. She got into it with some of the women there. Felt like they were excluding her, treating her like she wasn't good enough. Started making comments about how they were all pretentious, showing off their fancy houses and expensive wine. He laughed bitterly. Now I'm wondering if that's what this was really about. Projection. After we hung up, Michael looked at me with raised eyebrows. Book club drama turned into attacking our daughter. Hurt people, I said quietly. But that doesn't make it okay. And it doesn't mean we have to accept it. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I opened the door to find my father, Robert, standing on our porch, looking older and more uncertain than I'd ever seen him. Can we talk? He asked. I let him in, offered him coffee. He declined. We sat in the living room while Mia played in her room upstairs, her footsteps creaking across the ceiling. Your mother wanted to come, he began, but I asked her to let me do this alone. What I need to say myself. I waited. When you were growing up, I taught you to be strong, independent, to stand up for yourself. His voice cracked slightly. Somewhere along the way, I forgot to teach Jessica the same things. Or maybe I did teach her, but she learned the wrong lessons. She learned that image mattered more than substance. That maintaining appearances was worth any cost. Dad, I started. He held up a hand. Let me finish. I've spent 3 years being grateful that you and Michael saved us from ruin, but I never examined why we were in that position in the first place. I made risky choices trying to keep up with people whose opinions shouldn't have mattered. I prioritized looking successful over being successful. And worse, I taught my daughters that love was conditional on meeting certain standards. You never treated me like that, I protested, didn't you? He met my eyes. How many times did I ask when you were going to settle down, get married, give me grandchildren the normal way? How many comments did I make about your career choices, your modest house, your practical car? I was kinder about it than your sister, but the message was the same. You weren't quite measuring up to some imaginary standard. I hadn't thought about it that way before, but he was right. There had always been a subtle undercurrent of disappointment, a sense that I could be doing better if I just tried harder, aimed higher, wanted more. When you decided to adopt, my father continued, I didn't understand it. Why go through all that trouble when you could just have your own child? That's what I thought. That's how ignorant I was. He looked toward the stairs where Mia's singing drifted down. But that little girl up there, she is your own child. And the fact that I couldn't see that immediately, that I had to be taught something so fundamental. That's my failure, not yours. Tears blurred my vision. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that what happened at Thanksgiving wasn't just about Jessica's cruelty. It was about a family culture your mother and I created, where worth was measured by all the wrong things. Mia didn't fit the image of what we thought a grandchild should be. You didn't fit the image of what we thought a daughter should be. And instead of examining our own narrow thinking, we made you both feel less than. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. This is the title to the house. We can't accept it back, but we're not keeping it either. We're donating it to a children's charity, specifically one that supports adoption services. It seemed fitting. I took the envelope with shaking hands. Dad, you don't have to. We do. We absolutely do. That house represented everything wrong with our values. Letting it go is the first step in building something better. He stood, preparing to leave. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to let us back into your lives. But I needed you to know that we see our mistakes now. We see them clearly. After he left, I sat holding that envelope for a long time. Michael found me there an hour later, and I told him everything. He's really trying, Michael observed. He is. But is trying enough? That's not for me to answer. Love, that's your decision. Sunday brought another surprise. A package delivered to our door. Inside was a handmade quilt, clearly crafted with care. The pattern incorporated stars and moons in deep blues and purples, colors Mia loved. Attached was a note in Eleanor's handwriting. I started making this the day after Thanksgiving. I wanted Mia to have something made specifically for her with love. I understand if you don't want to accept it, but I hoped she might like it. Every stitch was sewn with an apology and a promise to do better. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor. Mia came down the stairs just as I was unfolding it. Her eyes went wide. Mom, is that for me? It's from Grandma, I said carefully, watching her reaction. She ran her fingers over the fabric, tracing the constellation patterns. It's beautiful. Can I keep it? Do you want to? She nodded, already wrapping it around her shoulders like a cape. Can I write her a thank you note? Something in my chest loosened. Of course you can, baby. We sat at the kitchen table together, and Mia carefully composed her note. Dear Grandma Eleanor, thank you for my quilt. I love the stars. Love, Mia. Simple, honest, with no complications. That evening, more messages arrived. Cousins reaching out to say they'd heard what happened and supported us. Friends from the adoption community sharing their own stories of family rejection and the reconciliation. My former college roommate sending a long text about how proud she was of me for standing up for my daughter. But mixed in were other messages too. Relatives who thought I was overreacting. People who believed family should forgive and forget. Some suggested that maybe Mia was being too sensitive, that children needed thicker skin. I deleted those without responding. Not everyone would understand, and that was fine. I didn't need universal approval. I needed to protect my daughter and maintain my boundaries. The Friday after Thanksgiving, I invited Ms. Davies over for coffee. She'd sent a kind message checking on Mia, and I needed to talk to someone who understood the complexities of adoption. We sat at my kitchen table while Mia played upstairs, and I told her everything that had happened. That poor baby, Ms. Davies said, shaking her head. After everything she's been through, to have family treat her that way, I just keep wondering if I overreacted. I admit it. If I should have handled it differently. You protected your child. That's never an overreaction. She squeezed my hand. And for what it's worth, Mia seems okay. Resilient. That's because she knows you have her back. Monday morning, Michael left for work early. I was getting Mia ready for school when my phone rang. An unknown number. Usually, I didn't answer those, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this Mrs. Monroe? An unfamiliar woman's voice. Yes, this is Sarah Miller. I'm a social worker with the adoption agency where you met Mia. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I heard about what happened at your family gathering. She paused. Mia's former foster mother, Ms. Davies, mentioned it. She and her husband have become friends with your family. Yes, they're our neighbors now. Wait, how did she know what happened? You told her about it when you invited her for coffee on Friday, remember? I'd forgotten. That conversation felt like weeks ago, not days. Right. Yes. I'm calling because I wanted you to know that what you did, standing up for Mia, setting those boundaries, that matters more than you might realize. Many adoptive parents struggle with family acceptance issues, and too often they capitulate to keep the peace. You showed Mia that her place in your family isn't negotiable. That's powerful. Her words settled something in me I hadn't realized was unsettled. Thank you for saying that. I also wanted to ask if you'd be willing to share your experience with some of our prospective adoptive parents. We do preparation courses, and honestly, dealing with extended family is one of the biggest challenges people face. Hearing from someone who's navigated it successfully could help. I'm not sure I'd call this successful, I said with a weak laugh. You protected your child. You maintained your family's dignity. You didn't allow anyone to diminish your daughter's worth. That's absolutely successful. Sarah Miller's voice was warm but firm. Think about it. No pressure, but your story could help a lot of families prepare for what might come. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen thinking about her offer. Could our painful Thanksgiving actually help other families? Could something good come from Jessica's cruelty? Mia appeared in her school uniform, backpack already on. Ready, Mom? Looking at her bright face, her confidence, her joy, I realized Sarah was right. We had successfully navigated this. Not perfectly, not without pain, but we'd emerged stronger. Mia knew beyond doubt that she was wanted, valued, protected. That was worth every difficult conversation, every burned bridge, every uncomfortable boundary I'd had to set. Michael wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "How are you doing?" "I don't know," I admitted. Sad, angry, relieved. All of it at once. "That's fair." We stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the kitchen we'd renovated together. In the house we'd chosen together. In the life we'd built piece by piece. Outside, the November wind rattled the windows. But inside, we were warm. "Thank you," I said finally, for standing up for her. "For us, always," Michael said simply. "That's what family does." The next morning, I woke to find Mia already up, sitting at the kitchen table with Michael. They were making a list, her small handwriting careful and deliberate next to his confident scrawl. "What's this?" I asked, pouring myself coffee. "We're planning next year's Thanksgiving," Mia announced proudly. "Daddy says we can invite anyone we want." I looked over her shoulder at the list. Her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, who had been so kind during the adoption transition. Our neighbors, the Davies, who welcomed us with cookies when we moved in. Michael's college roommate and his family. People who had shown us kindness, who had treated Mia with love and respect, who had earned their place in our lives. "This is perfect," I said, kissing the top of her head. My phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" "Thank goodness." Eleanor's voice was thick with tears. "I've been trying to reach you all night. Please, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "What happened yesterday was unforgivable. Your father and I spent all night talking, and we realize now how badly we failed you." "Failed Mia." "We got so caught up in maintaining appearances, in keeping the peace with Jessica, that we forgot what actually matters." I waited, saying nothing. "We want to make this right," she continued. "We want to be better grandparents to Mia. Better parents to you. Please give us a chance to prove that we can change." "What about Jessica?" My mother sighed. "Your sister is dealing with her own issues. She and Brian had a long talk last night. She knows she was wrong. But honestly, this isn't about her. This is about us, our relationship with you and your family. We can't force Jessica to change, but we can control our own actions." Mia was terrified, I said, the anger rising fresh in my throat. "She shook like a leaf because your daughter made her feel like she didn't belong, in a house that we own, at a table where she had every right to sit. Do you understand how messed up that is?" "I do." My mother's voice broke. "I absolutely do. And I will carry the shame of allowing that to happen for the rest of my life. Your father and I should have shut it down immediately. We should have defended her, defended you. Instead, we sat there like cowards, and that's something we'll have to live with." I looked at Mia, happily planning a holiday filled with people who loved her unconditionally. She deserved grandparents who would protect her, who would champion her, who would never let anyone make her feel less than whole. "I need time," I told my mother. "I need to see real change, sustained over time, not just words, actions." "Whatever it takes," my mother promised. "We'll do whatever it takes." 2 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from my parents' attorney, officially transferring the deed back to their names. Included was a handwritten note from my father: "We cannot accept such a generous gift when we have failed so spectacularly to honor the spirit in which it was given. We're selling the estate and downsizing to something we can actually afford. The money from the sale will go toward paying you back for everything you've done for us over the years, plus interest. We hope someday you'll let us earn back your trust. Until then, we respect your need for space. With love and deepest regret." Michael read the letter over my shoulder. "They're serious." Maybe, I said. We'll see. That Christmas, we had a small celebration at our house. Just the three of us, plus the Davies and Ms. Rodriguez. Mia wore a red velvet dress and helped Michael hang ornaments on the tree. We made cookies and watched holiday movies and laughed until our sides hurt. My phone buzzed with messages from family members all day. Some supportive, some confused, some demanding. I ignored most of them. The only one I responded to was from my Aunt Carol, my father's sister. "Your grandmother would be proud of you," she wrote. "She always said family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters. You showed up for that little girl. That's what counts." I saved that message, reading it whenever doubt crept in about whether I'd done the right thing by walking away. In February, my mother called again. "Your father and I found a townhouse. It's small, but it's manageable. We can afford it on our own. We wanted you to know." "That's good, Mom. We've also been seeing a family therapist," she continued. "Trying to understand why we enabled Jessica's behavior for so long, why we prioritized her feelings over yours. It's been enlightening and painful." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," my mother said quickly. "I know we don't deserve that yet. I just wanted you to know we're trying. And if you ever decide Mia might want to know her grandparents, we promise to be the kind of grandparents she deserves." After I hung up, Michael found me staring out the window at our backyard where Mia was building a snow fort. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking about forgiveness," I admitted. "About whether it's possible to rebuild trust after it's been broken so completely." "Only you can answer that," Michael said. "But whatever you decide, I'm with you." In April, we got an invitation. My parents were hosting a small gathering at their new townhouse. Just immediate family. A chance to start fresh, the card said. No pressure, no expectations. I showed it to Mia. "What do you think? Want to give Grandma and Grandpa another chance?" She considered it seriously, as she considered everything. "Will that mean Lady be there? Your Aunt Jessica?" "No. This would just be Grandma and Grandpa." "Okay," she said finally. "But can Daddy come too?" "Absolutely." The townhouse was indeed small, but it was warm and welcoming. My parents greeted us at the door, and I saw the uncertainty in their eyes, the hope mixed with fear. Eleanor knelt down to Mia's level. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "I made apple pie. Your mom told me it's your favorite." Mia nodded shyly, holding tight to my hand. The visit was brief, carefully managed. My parents didn't push, didn't demand, didn't make excuses. They asked Mia about school, about her friends, about her interests. They listened when she talked about her art class, her soccer team, her favorite books. They treated her like the precious granddaughter she was. As we were leaving, my father pulled me aside. "Thank you for this chance. We won't waste it." "See that you don't," I said, but there was less ice in my voice than before. In the car on the way home, Mia was quiet. "They were nicer this time," she observed. "Yes, they were," I agreed. "Can we see them again?" I glanced at Michael, who gave me an encouraging nod. "Yes, baby. We can see them again." It wasn't perfect. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But my parents kept working at it, kept showing up, kept proving through action that they meant their apologies. Slowly, carefully, we built something new. We never did reconcile with Jessica. She sent a card once, months later, claiming she'd been under stress and hadn't meant what she said. But there was no real accountability, no genuine understanding of the harm she'd caused. I sent back a brief note wishing her well and asking her to respect our boundaries. Some relationships, I'd learned, aren't worth saving. Some people would rather be right than kind, and that was okay. I didn't need my whole family to validate my choices. I just needed the people in my life to treat my daughter with love and respect. 3 years later, we hosted Thanksgiving at our house. My parents came bearing gifts for Mia and genuine smiles. The Davies were there, along with Ms. Rodriguez and several other families we'd grown close to. The house was full of laughter and warmth and love. Mia, now 10 and confident in her place in the world, sat at the main table between Michael and me. She said grace before the meal, thanking the universe for family. Not the family you're born into, she said, but the family you build, the family that chooses you back. Looking around that table at the faces of people who had earned their place through kindness and consistency, I felt something settle in my chest. This was what family was supposed to feel like. This was what Thanksgiving was supposed to be. The Davies sat near the end of the table, laughing at one of Mia's jokes. They'd been more than neighbors to us. Ms. Davies had been one of Mia's foster mothers before we adopted her. And when we'd moved into this neighborhood 2 years ago, discovering them living 3 doors down had felt like fate. They'd helped Mia transition into her forever home, maintaining that connection while respecting our role as her parents. My daughter would never again shake with fear at a family gathering. She would never again question whether she belonged, because we'd built something better than what I'd grown up with. We built a family based on choice and love rather than obligation and blood. That night, after everyone had gone home and Mia was asleep, Michael and I cleaned up the kitchen together. As I was putting away the last of the dishes, I found myself thinking about that terrible Thanksgiving 3 years ago, the moment everything changed. Do you ever regret it? I asked Michael. Standing up like that? The way everything exploded? He dried his hands and turned to face me fully. Not for a second. Do you? I thought about Mia's smile at dinner tonight. The easy way she'd laughed with her grandparents, the confidence she carried now. I thought about the boundaries we'd set and maintained, the family we'd chosen to surround ourselves with, the life we'd built on our own terms. No, I said. Not for a second. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away from people who refuse to see your worth. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your child is showing them that their value doesn't depend on anyone else's acceptance. Mia was my daughter, not despite being adopted, but simply because she was mine and I was hers. And anyone who couldn't see the blessing in that didn't deserve a seat at our table, no matter whose name was on the deed. What's a difficult boundary you've had to set with family?